everybody. This is Beth Shibley, and I am with Aging Matters in Brevard, and we are here today with Wendy Garvin. Oh, yeah, Garvin?
Garvin.
Yep, from SHATE Partners, and to do a caregiver conversation today on virtual support to enhance health and wellness. So, this virtual world that we're all in right now, and what does that mean? A couple of years ago, virtual world meant a whole lot of different stuff than what it means now. So, welcome, welcome, Wendy, and thank you so much for coming. Could you tell me a little bit about SHATE Partners and yourself?
Yeah, so first I want to say thank you, Beth, for having me. I really am excited about being here with you to have the conversation. So my name's Wendy Garvin Mayo. I am a nurse practitioner. I'm a life coach and cancer caregiver consultant and the founder of SHATE Partners. So SHATE Partners is really dedicated to helping cancer caregivers, family members, and friends optimize their mental and physical health. And we do that through our 4 pillars, which are partnership, advocacy, coaching, and education.
Cool. And today we're going to, Wendy's going to talk about, like I said, virtual support. So at any point, if you want to go ahead and start your PowerPoint, we can start the conversation.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Beth. Let's get that up.
Fabulous. There it is.
All right. So
perfect.
Let's get going. Virtual support to enhance health and wellness. My favorite topic. All right. So we're going to start off with COVID-19. So as we all know, we're in a pandemic, global pandemic. Our world's really shifted personally and professionally in March. But Beth, did you know that our first case in the U.S. was really in January, and then?
Yeah, I'm hearing that now. And I'm not even sure that they might not even push that back earlier too. So I would not at all be surprised to find out that they're going to find people that were even earlier. But yeah.
January was our first case in the United States, but then in March, that's when everything kind of shifted. It was, deemed a global pandemic, and, mask and shutting down and wiping down groceries. That's when our lives just totally shifted. And with COVID-19 comes what? Stress.
Absolutely. COVID-19 is really, it's changed everything. You and I were talking before when we were prepping for this, and I really feel like, everybody I know and me have just gotten picked up and thrown in the deep end of the pool. And that mean old nasty uncle just walked away, and here we are struggling to figure out everything. This beast we call technology and all that comes with it certainly hasn't been a source of relieving any of my stress for the most part.
Yeah, because with COVID-19 now, with that shift comes, not going to work, working from home, kids, virtual learning, in the home. So everything is really virtual now, which, prior to COVID-19, people had their own stressors, but then on top of, their own stressors, COVID-19 comes, it just, compounds that stress.
Yeah,
so,
blows it up.
So everything is virtual, even, the drive-by parties people are doing, the virtual birthday parties, virtual weddings, even funerals are online now. Have you seen that, Beth?
Yes, absolutely. I've done caregiver conversations where part of the conversation has been about being able to do that. Yeah, and people being, whether or not it's been a case of COVID-19 illness, and people not being able to be with their loved ones at the time of their death and when they're very ill. I mean, if you think about not being near your loved one, it's just, my dad died about a little more than a year ago, and my sisters and I and my mom were all blessed enough to be with him when he passed. I can't even wrap my head around what folks are going through and have been going through since COVID.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even like, my cancer caregivers, they've been having a hard time because they can't go into the ER. They can't even go into the infusion centers when their loved one is having like their chemo treatments. If they're admitted, everything is so limited and restricted. But I
And that's,
do want to say
hmm,
that because of technology, you can stay connected. So a lot of the nurses are using their mobile phones or,
mhm.
laptops to FaceTime or, call family members. So technology has really, I would say, enhanced this stressful time in our lives.
Yeah, we can certainly look at it as something that's, it's maybe not perfect, but it certainly is way better than the alternative of not having any contact at all. So yeah, if you're sitting in an infusion room getting, you know, for an hour getting a bag of chemo, or a couple of hours having a bag of chemo hung, and you're just sitting there, you can FaceTime. The ability to be able to FaceTime or Zoom with a family member that normally would be right there next to you, certainly can help the time go by a little faster. I mean, how much Candy Crush can you play? Says the woman who's played a lot of Candy Crush. Yeah.
So true, so true. And I know a lot of institutions in terms of patients on hospice, they are making changes in their policies where family members can come, because that is so important to, no one wants to die alone. Even though I know many people have, because
Right.
of COVID-19,
Well,
but
thank God those things have starting to just recently change as we're starting to learn more about the virus and learn more about how we can prevent it. But also, things are right now, we're taping this in early December, and right now things are really blowing up. So I'm not sure that we're not going to have to go into a little more of a lockdown before we're through the worst of this.
yeah, no, I totally, totally agree with you. And being in these times, we have to really explore, what do we have in our toolbox and what do we need to add to our toolbox,
Right.
to speak. So yeah, so I'm gonna move to the next slide here, Beth.
That's fine.
Okay, so stress. COVID-19 followed by stress. All right. So stress, I want to say this about stress. So stress can be a good thing, right? Because we do have good stressors in our lives, right? I don't want to make it sound like it's all bad. If you're having a wedding or you're surprised, those are stressful moments, right? So I would call those more so like external stressors. What we're talking about for this presentation are really those internal stressors. So our thoughts, our behaviors, our beliefs, things that can stress us out for a long period of time, which becomes chronic stress, which can definitely impact our health. So that's why this slide is here, because with COVID-19 causing stress, it can definitely weigh on us and really have an impact on our health.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I'm looking at all of them, and they're, you really can see where things that have, over the past year, sort of like a frog in a pot, I mean, and you boil the pot and the frog doesn't even know until the water's really, really warm what's going on here, because the stress is just kind of a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, a little bit. And, I think last March I sort of was very much thinking, oh, well, we can do this. And I was pregnant twice. I can do this standing on my head, and this is not a problem. And then, April and May and June and October and November, and now what we're dealing with in December. And I don't think there's a single person I've talked to that can actually admit that they're absolutely fine and that there's nothing going on.
Yeah.
I have not met a single person who isn't telling me they're under stress.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I mean, these are stressful times. I think, even for me, so I'm a mom, I have a child, he just turned 1 in July, working from home, no babysitter. My husband and I are tag teaming him. We have a teenager who's doing virtual learning here, so our house has totally shifted. Very stressful, but you got to try to get into a routine and really make it work. So at the beginning, the stress levels were here, right? But then it's like,
Right.
what do you do to try to reduce the stress and live in the new normal, as everyone's calling it.
Right, right. And I think a lot of this
times now, but
this particular slide really helps me, focus on and look at, the symptoms of stress, and hey, maybe maybe I should take a look at broken sleep as being a sign of stress, and not just a sign of maybe I overdid the exercising, or maybe I shouldn't have reached for that, or irritability and apathy and all of those things that it's very easy to kind of slough it off as just not connected. When you put all these things together, I mean, really a pattern emerges of what it is our mind and body and emotions and behavior, what they're all undergoing, and how much sense it makes. It kind of clicks.
Yeah, so. And two things I want to add is everything that's up here, mind, behavior, emotions, body, all connected, and we are in control of it. We are in control of our mind, we're in control of our behavior, our emotions, and our body, and it really starts with our mind. So I think in these times, and even outside of these times, it's important that we take time and space to really check in with ourselves. Right?
Absolutely.
Because a lot is definitely going on. We've never really experienced anything like this. So it really is important to check in with yourself and really figure out what you need. What am I feeling? What do I need right now? And how can I get it? Because it's important that we feed ourselves before.
Yeah, I think that just, the beginning piece to that for me is just recognizing it, to acknowledge it, to see it, and because, if I'm going through kind of just oblivious, there's no way you can address it.
Yes.
And start to deal with it and start to look at how it is you're going to, move forward and adapt and make changes to alleviate those things, until you at first recognize the symptoms, recognize what it is you're going through as what they are,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and one method I teach my caregivers, and I'll say it here, maybe it can help someone, is I use the acronym STOP. So stop, literally stop, give yourself the time and space. Really think about, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? What is bothering me? What's stressing me out? Then the third is options. The O is for options. What options do you have, right? Do you need to, take a walk? Do you need to get more sleep? Do you need to phone a friend? So what do you need? What are your options? And P is for proceed or plan. So if you have the option, you put that into motion and you proceed. Or if it's an option that requires planning, you put a plan into place.
Right.
Before you proceed. So that's something, it helps me because I use it. I definitely have to stop during the day.
I agree. We've had this conversation. I'm a list person too, Wendy. I think you were saying before to me that you're a list person. Love my list.
Yeah.
Love scratching things off my list.
Yes.
When I make a list, the first thing I do is, when I make a list, the first thing I put on it is make a list so I can scratch it off. Just saying, it's me. It's a thing.
Yes, I am a list person. So like my day, it's nice to see it on paper, and not so much scratching it off, but it just kind of keeps me like, okay, this, and that. It's just very, systematic. Like, okay. And then after 5, I'm free. There's nothing else on my list, so I can do whatever I want to do.
Oh, do you know what makes me feel better than almost anything? Is being able to tear that piece of paper off and rewrite the list of all the open stuff I've got. Just saying that, like, if I've got like 40 things on my, like if I've got 15 or 20 things on my list, and then I can scratch and I can rewrite it and only have 3 things on my list, it's such a feeling of accomplishment. People who aren't list people don't understand, but
yes,
person to understand that.
Yeah, but one thing I have to say I have to work on, Beth, is putting myself on the list every day.
There's absolutely. I don't know. I don't think we ever do that.
No.
Not as me. I mean, and for many years, I mean, you're at the front end of this, Wendy, with new baby, but I'm a little more on the back end of it. But in the front end, it's really easy to put yourself nowhere on that list. And even if you do put yourself on that list, you're doing it as a wife, as a mother, as an employee, as a sister, as a daughter, as as a coworker, as a neighbor, never just as Wendy.
Right.
So putting yourself on the list is not any of those other people.
Yeah. I'm going to work on that. I'm going to take that one for myself.
Okay.
Put myself on the list starting today. So, all right, we're going to go to the next slide.
Okay.
All right. So health and wellness. These all kind of trickle into each other, right? COVID-19 stress, health and wellness. So health is really the state of being without disease, illness, or injury. And wellness is what we do to get there, to meet that goal. So it's really our lifestyles, our behaviors.
Right.
I'm sorry, Beth, go ahead.
I said, or stay there, is to get there and then stay there.
Yeah, so how do you make it sustainable? It is really, that is key, Beth. That is key. How many, well, I'll ask you and I'll answer, but how many times have you started like a workout routine? How many times have you,
I've actually lost the same 50 pounds so many times, I really don't weigh anything at all. Yeah. I just want to put that out there. It really, that's really the kicker is motivating to get to a certain point of wellness. And I think that point, or that certain point of health, that I think that's that's very individual. And I think we have to have some grace with our expectations as to what we consider health when we consider wellness. I mean, my health I'm 60, like I said, and I'm not going to be putting my health up against my 25-year-old niece. That's not, we're not in the same category here anymore. Right. But for where I am right now, I think I'm doing pretty good. So I need to understand that it's on a continuum, so.
Yeah, no, that's really a good point. Where are you now, right? And just because, you may be taking medications does not mean you're unhealthy, right?
Right.
But we can always improve our health, all of us, regardless of where we are, definitely.
Right.
But, we all want to be without illness and disease and definitely injury. And, again, we're in control of this. And what's important about health is that, your stress can definitely impact health. Many chronic illnesses are caused by stress, high blood pressure, diabetes, acid reflux, stress can also decrease our immune system, which we really need now in a time of a pandemic. We want our immune systems to be, functioning at its optimal level. So,
I mean, you can't hear the word, I can't watch CNN or listen to NPR for more than 15 minutes without hearing the word immune system.
Right.
Or, hearing that it's just part of the lexicon now.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's really important. And I mean, how many people have heard of their immune system before COVID-19, right?
We've all heard about it now.
Right. And that's stressful too. All this new knowledge, all these new terms, and, maybe not understanding everything that's happening because everything is so new, right? With this pandemic. So, go ahead.
And, and the word immune system along with the word compromised.
Yes.
Which does not ever, those two words together are never a good thing, but that's, they kind of like come together like sick and tired. We're all looking at that. So go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So wellness, there are multiple dimensions of wellness. It's not one dimensional, but I mean, we're talking about our lives. Our lives are not one dimensional. There's so many aspects to it. So these are 8 dimensions listed here. So emotional is really being in check, with your feelings and making sure you have an outlet to really, figure out what you need, what you're feeling, and what you need to feel better.
Right.
Spiritual is really purpose, our purpose in life, really evaluating. And I think with COVID-19, Beth, and you let me know this, we kind of are thinking about that a little more. Like, okay, what is life? What are we doing? What do I want to accomplish? What have I accomplished? What I want to be grateful for?
Right. And, kind of those existential questions that we're all asking ourselves. And sometimes that's involved with a formal faith community and sometimes not. And either way, I think whatever people consider their a spiritual aspect of their lives. And I think some people might not even really put too much thought into whether or not they have one, but I think most people will, if they think about it long enough, realize that there's a spirituality to their lives, whether or not they're attending church every week or not. They maybe have never been inside of a church.
Right.
But though you're right, when you think about it, it's those deeper questions that we're asking ourselves. And I think even back to the emotional, I think we're talking about not just the bad. It's that whole spectrum of emotions. And keeping them all kind of understanding and recognizing, where each one of them are, the highs and the lows.
And appreciating them. I mean, we aren't just talking about negative emotions. I mean, if you're happy, lean into that. Mm-hmm. What's making you happy, right? We want more of that.
So right. Absolutely.
Negative. Yeah. And intellectual, how are we saying, mentally stimulated? Some people do crossword puzzles. I work full time, so my job keeps me mentally stimulated every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And physical.
But
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Beth.
No, I would say, but I would challenge you. I would say, Wendy, that intellectually, I think that intellectually, if you look at it in more than one dimension, my work keeps me intellectually stimulated, but trying out a new recipe is a totally different stimulation. Working in my garden is a totally different. Learning something and learning to do something, learning and doing things in a different aspects of my life. So I think sometimes stimulating your intellect in a different way than what you do all day long really has some benefits when it comes to paying attention to the wellness,
Yes, no, I absolutely agree with you. And while you were talking, I was thinking about technology.
Oh, absolutely. You're absolutely right. We can look at it as that big, holy moly, I don't even want to turn the thing on. Or we can look at it as an opportunity to fire a synapse in a different part of our brain, and maybe start to make these connections and go, oh, wow, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, even for me, before COVID-19, I've never did like a Facebook Live. So Facebook Live was definitely intellectually stimulating, trying to figure it out and, being on camera and when do you start speaking and so I mean, but you're so right. Something outside of your day-to-day can definitely stimulate your intellectual dimension. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So physical talks about, nutrition, physical activity, and sleep, which is really important.
They are the Holy Trinity.
Yeah. Yes. And maybe trying to get something in routinely. I was saying, I want to start at least stretching every day, because stretching is very beneficial and we don't realize how tense we are, sitting at a desk or on the couch or in a chair. So even, doing a little stretching is really good. Do you have any routines, Beth, that you do?
I wish I could say I'm as good about it as I normally am right now. You're up in the north and I'm in Florida, and I'm kind of mourning the loss of our pool isn't heated. And I know that's a first world problem, but I love to swim. So I'll figure out something else. Mike and I love to walk in the evenings, and with the weather that's good. We used to love, when we lived in New England, we would love to just bundle up and go for a walk. So even if you can do it safe and not slip and fall and break your neck. I think I love to physical activities and routines. I love to garden. I love to, like I said, I love to swim. I love to walk. I think those would be my three big things. I should be a little bit better about stretching and the exercising and the core thing. I think that that's something I do need to get into. My husband has started a little bit of a exercise routine, and I'm sort of, he's on the floor doing it while we're watching the news, and I'm sort of thinking, I really should get down there and do some of these with him at the same time. So I'm sort of thinking that maybe this weekend I'm going to start doing doing some of the stretching exercises with him.
Yeah, no,
so.
That's great. That's great. And I'm in Connecticut, so the weather here, it's really cold. In the summer, we used to walk every day,
right,
multiple times a day, because that was our activity, getting out the house. But now that the weather has shifted, it's kind of like, oh, so now what do we do? So we really need to get back into a routine.
And the exact opposite happens here in Florida. During the summer, it's like 100 degrees, and I'm like, not for love nor money am I going to be getting out there. It's from the air conditioned car to the air conditioned house. But now, like today, it's really stunning. It's maybe mid 60s, and it's going to get into the mid 70s, and it's bright blue skies, and and so there's really no excuse whatsoever for me not to get myself out there and walk around the block a few times.
Yeah, it's hard to get started.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah. And environmental talks about your physical environment. So, whether you're talking about clutter, like, how do you function the best? Maybe clean surfaces, maybe, I don't know. How do you function the best? I love things to be in place, or I just can't see them. I need clear for me to function.
I have to tell you, my husband says that my method of cleaning is to go like this, whoosh, and then close the drawer. And he said, that's how I clean a countertop off, is I open a drawer and I go like that, and then I close the drawer. But I think that there is something to be said for that. In fact, it's funny because today, normally I'm doing this outside, but normally I'd be taping this inside. But we're having a closet organizing system thing put in and because we've been living, we moved in August, and we've been living in a state of boxes of things. When we moved down here to Florida, we moved from a larger home to a smaller home, and downsized by 700 or 800 square feet, and that's significant. I'm also originally from the Northeast as well, so I'm used to closets and basements and attics and spaces, and nothing like that down here. We're on a slab foundation, so no basement, and the attic is just unreasonable for most of the summertime. So we've been literally living with around boxes and stuff, and I can tell it adds to the clutter. And the environment it's going to feel so good when we can actually get things up where they go permanently. So I absolutely agree with your, I feel like if it's not, I feel unsettled when I'm working in an environment, or when I'm sitting in an environment that is where all kinds of stuff is just not where it goes,
right. Yeah. And one thing I say is, like, sometimes we don't all have the luxury to, have a clean home or a decluttered.
Absolutely.
But find a space, so whether it's a chair or even a closet. Closets are really good.
Yeah.
It's a place to just kind of sit, think, and process. But have a space that's yours, that you can go to and feel good and
right.
think about things. So yeah.
And I haven't always been. I realize I live in a blessed life right now, and I have the ability to be able to, complain about first world problems. But there have been a lot of times where it has felt like, especially when Mike and I were young and in our parenting, it felt like every room was filled with children's stuff.
Yeah.
And even when we only had 2 rooms, we had our bedroom, and the living room, and the baby's room, and and it was just to have a corner. You're right. Where you've got a space, and maybe it's just a matter of of turning a chair so that you don't have to necessarily look at it. You know, I mean, how you orient yourself is, and you know, maybe it's out of sight, out of mind, but just being able to sort of say, okay, you know, I'd like to be able to sit down and read this magazine, but I don't want to be looking at all that pile of stuff that you know, just to be able to move to a different chair or turn the chair a little bit, you know. So yeah, you're right.
Turn it towards the wall like nothing else exists but me and the wall.
You know, it's time out for big people. It's okay.
Yes, yes. And occupation and financial, you know, has really been impacted by the pandemic. So many people have been laid off, furloughed, you know, which really impacts their financial status, you know. So, so one is, you know, financial is being okay with where you are financially, which many people probably, you know, are not because of the change in their work. Sudden change, you know, the sudden change in their work status. And social is really, you know, being connected to family, friends, the community, you know. So make sure you're maintaining that. And what can help you better stay connected?
You know, yeah, and you know, I mean, we talked about it yesterday when we were prepping for this. You know, how much COVID has affected and put stressors and reduced our capacity in all of these different areas, some more than others. And so we were saying that, you know, like, so, you know, when we've had, you know, environmental stressors and, you know, having to sort of stay home all the time and, you know, paying and involved with the social and reducing our bubble, has that put additional stressors on our physical, you know, and our emotional, and it's just all mixed in together with those, with COVID being in the middle of all of that. I mean, they're all so interdependent. It's like an ecosystem.
Yes, no, definitely. I totally agree with that. But you know, what I think about is like when you're stressed, you can't really think clearly, right? So you don't know what dimension is impacted. So really taking that time to, like I said, check in with yourself, like what dimension, you know, am I a little deficient in? Where am I thriving, right? Because you want to celebrate your wins too. It's not all negative.
Right.
But to really understand and, you know, what do I need? Is really an important question we all need to ask ourselves on a daily basis. So,
you know, and what part do we need to feed?
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
You know, where do we need to sort of pay attention to this particular, you know, child for now? You know, like sometimes like this particular thing, you say, you know, it's been a while since I've been able to get out and exercise. Today I'm going to take 20 minutes after dinner and we're going to go out and we're going to, you know, or I haven't picked up a magazine, you know, or a newspaper or a book, you know, in 2 months. This weekend, I'm going to set aside one evening to do that, you know.
Right.
So where you're right, where the next step from checking in, and that's the P part, is to plan and to proceed, right?
Yes. Absolutely. And then, you know, you go out and take that walk, Beth, you know, you meet in the physical, but then even emotional, you may feel better, you know?
Oh, absolutely. You feel, I think that, again, that goes to it being with all an interdependent ecosystem. And social, I mean, the social helps to be able to, because even as minimal as it is, to be able to just take a walk in a park or just in my neighborhood, and to say hi to another human being. You know, and you know, and so that, or a neighbor, or to, you know, see somebody 2 doors down and stop for 2 minutes and say, hey, how you doing? That's a social interaction that I'm not getting sitting on my couch.
Yes. It's so funny you say that, because I was just telling my husband that I haven't seen our neighbors in a couple of days just because it's cold out too. And I'm like, I miss seeing a neighbor across the street. Like I haven't seen them, you know?
Yes.
So that social aspect is really important, really important.
You know, and I want to put a little plug in here for the fact that for people who are have friends and neighbors that are elderly, you know, it's really important that we pay attention to that.
Yes.
Neighbor that you haven't seen her garage door be open in a little while, or you haven't seen her go out to get her mail, or her newspapers are, yeah, those are really important things to do. So.
Yeah, checking in. So that community part, the social,
right.
the community is very important. And I'll share a story. So I have a friend who's older, lives alone, and because of the pandemic, everyone's isolated. You're not seeing family. And we were on a call, and she mentioned that she missed being hugged. And we take that for granted, but the sense of touch, right? Someone touching you, just giving you a hug. I was I was blown away. It was so simple, but so profound. Like, I didn't even think of that. There's so many people who are alone, who don't have, community. They don't have family. They don't have friends. It's just them. They don't even have pets. I mean, even having a pet can, make you feel good because it's a living being.
Well, I am absolutely a hugger. And, and sometimes it's not even the, I was, the other day I walked by and I said to Mike, I just need a hug. And I'm lucky enough to have my husband who can give me a hug, and he's in my bubble. But I realized I'm down a quart, I'm down a quart in hugs. And, and it's the, where I worked in Houston, there was a woman that you really did have to set aside additional time when you were going to be going to go to her office, because she would just give you these long, extraordinary hugs. I mean, you just could not do a drive-by with her. You had to stop, and if I was going to a meeting and I was going to see her, I had to make sure I set aside another extra 2 or 3 minutes to spend some time, because we were going to have one of those really nice long hugs.
Yeah.
And I miss those.
The feeling of someone hugging you, it's just you can appreciate it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so
and those really great hugs where you relax into it.
Yes. Yes.
Where you just, all of us, you're just like, oh, this feels so good.
Yes. No, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. And I just want to reiterate, checking on your neighbors, whether it's a phone call, trying to make a call a day to someone, just say hello, I'm thinking of you.
Right.
And with this pandemic, a lot of people are online now. I know we're talking about technology and being in the virtual world, but connecting with old friends. I've connected with, people from high school, even middle school, online, being on social media. So reconnecting has also been a benefit.
Yes, absolutely.
I've also met many people. I've made a lot of new friends who I've never even seen before in person, but they're like my virtual friends. We talk on the phone. We have Zoom meetings, So, yeah. But all that is feeding the dimensions of wellness. That's my point. So next we have mindset. What kind of mindset do you have? Fixed versus growth mindset. So a fixed mindset is really, this is, I can't, I won't try. This is what I think and what I do is it. I'm not willing to try anything new, so growth mindset is really leaning into, trying new things, having an open mind. And in this day of COVID, it's important to have that growth mindset.
Well, and we're, we talked a little about this yesterday. Here we throws in the first thing that hits in my mind again is technology. Yes. And that fixed mindset of, oh, I don't even, I'm not good at this computer stuff. And I dread having to learn that new piece. And, computer equipment is not cheap. So, to some extent, I'm, sometimes concerned about whether or not I'm going to break it, or whether or not I'm going to be able to, I'm going to mess it up, or look foolish. And so it's really easy to get into a very fixed mindset when it comes to learning specifically about new technologies.
Yes. Yeah.
And I am frustrated, and it doesn't help when I get even more frustrated when I have to ask for help. And then whoever it is that I'm helping is going too fast. And I'm like, before I know it, they're just doing something for me instead of letting me learn. And I can't process it the way I was maybe able to do 40 years ago. I could have processed it a little more quickly. And then, it's just, feeling like you're either good at it or not is such a hard thing to come off of with technology.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And in terms, when you were talking, I was thinking about someone, showing you what to do and they're going too fast. Again, what do you need? And let them know what you need, really expressing what you need. But also that self-talk is really important. The I can't, I won't, I will never. Because, your thoughts and beliefs really becomes your reality. So,
right.
Maybe starting with something like, I will try.
Right.
I'm capable of learning. We're all capable of learning, right? That whole intellectual stimulation piece. We were all capable of learning. So maybe even starting there, the self-talk of really saying, this is a new time, COVID-19. Everyone's connecting virtually. I'll try it.
Well, and I think sometimes what can help with that, for me anyways, is to take small manageable bites.
Yes.
Maybe the first time I get on to whatever platform or website or whatever it is, maybe I'm not going to be, being all fabulous at it, but maybe I can just, I just remember that for a long time when I first started Facebook years and years ago, I was more of like a stalker. I really didn't do a whole lot of posting. I didn't, for quite a few. In fact, it was funny because for quite a few months, my husband Mike was just get on my Facebook, and he would just like stalk, and not in a weird way, but he would like to get on to see the kids or get on to see friends. And I finally said, get your own darn Facebook page, because you're stalking on me. You're just a stalker, and so. But that was an easier way for him to, put a toe in. You don't always have to jump in the deep end of the pool. You can sit on the edge of the pool and just stick your legs in for a bit.
Yeah.
You don't have to go out and hit, do 18-hole golf course the first day. You can just maybe go out with a club and, in the backyard, play around, so there's ways to be able to move from that fixed mindset to that growth mindset.
Yes.
By setting reasonable expectations, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And even something like downloading the app, maybe downloading the Zoom app or downloading the Facebook app or downloading the YouTube app. I mean, that's definitely a start too.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And some things are more, you can be a little more passive with when you have to learn them than other things. YouTube is a great example. You can get on and just watch the videos. You don't have to go on and, start them all yourselves. Same thing with Facebook, so.
Yeah, but I think this is really the foundation of everything we're talking about is where is your mind in terms of COVID, right? Is this a time where you're going to allow it to stress you out, or is it going to be a time where you just kind of reevaluate what's important to you? Same with stress. It starts with, your mindset. Are you going to, try to evaluate what's in your toolbox, for stress management, or are you going to add new things to your toolbox, or are you just going to continue to be stressed out, and impact those dimensions of wellness? So I think mindset is so important.
Yeah, as you're saying, toolbox. For years, I've used the phrase toy box. Seems less like work.
I like that.
So yeah, what's in my toy box? What am I going to play with today?
Yeah.
There's a little less pressure if I think about sometimes when I think about these sorts of things. So sometimes I have a toolbox that I got to get to work, and sometimes I have a toy box and I'm just going to play around.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So can we do a call to action for the people watching?
Yeah, I think so. What do you think? Go ahead. Let's do that.
Make one change today. Do something different today. One thing. One thing out of your comfort zone. So that's my call to action.
One thing out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, one thing out of your comfort zone, or one thing you usually wouldn't do. So, if it's technology, let's say you will maybe watch YouTube, maybe download an app, maybe look on someone else's Facebook page, maybe turn the computer on,
make a folder in your email box. Make a, check your email.
Yes,
figure out what the junk thing is.
Send an email.
Send an email. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Text a friend a friend.
Text a friend. Yes. Something different. Or even just telling yourself, I will try this, whatever this is. So that's right. So that's my call to action.
Yeah, I found once you do those sorts of things, I will say, Wendy, the world just can really open up.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times Google has saved my bacon. Because I have been like, how do I do this? And I think, oh, I'll Google it. And I'll be darned if it doesn't exist on Google.
Right.
And most of the time it's a YouTube video.
Yes.
So yeah, when we just moved in and my stove, the house is not new, and the stoves, the oven is had between the plates of glass in the oven was all messed up. The people who owned the house before us, they cleaned the oven, but between the plates in the oven, something had spilled between them. Mm-hmm. And I don't have the money to be able to replace the stove. So I thought, oh my God, how am I going to get into this? So I Googled it and I YouTubed it, and I'll be darned if there wasn't an instructional video on how to take the door off and then take the plates apart so I could clean in between the oven doors. And I went, oh my God. So yeah, Google will save your bacon. Honest to God.
There's a YouTube video for everything. And while you're talking, I was thinking about the Alexa. Have you heard of the Alexa?
Oh yeah.
Where you can ask Alexa questions. And Alexa, I think you just plug it in and then she starts talking. I don't know if you have to program it. We have a couple, but I don't know how to. I know how to talk to her, but I don't know how to set them up. My husband.
Oh well, sounds like you know your call to action later on today.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Figure out what Wendy's going to be doing this afternoon after lunch for a little while.
I'm gonna actually figure out what do you need to do to get the Alexa up? Do you just plug it in, or do you have to program?
Because we don't have it. I think there's something I've heard that there's something about enabling skills, and I don't know what that means. And I think it's sort of must be a setting somewhere.
And the only reason I'm saying I think there's a setup because when I play music, it'll say it's my husband's playlist. So I'm like, well, how do you know his playlist? It must be synced.
He set it up.
I don't know, but that's my call to action. I will definitely.
There's your call to action. That's right. To get your own Wendy playlist. So the next time your husband goes to Alexa, he's going to have to pay attention to what's his playlist and what's your playlist.
Right, right. So when I do that, I'm going to put it in the comments down here, that I did it.
Okay.
All right. So strategies to maintain your wellness. Of course, we can eat healthy. Try to make healthy choices.
Yep.
And with healthy choices, I think when we talk about, consuming healthy foods, it can become so overwhelming. We think each meal. I always just say a healthy choice, whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, or a snack. I think that's definitely making progress.
And it's really can be very easy to not pay attention to eating healthy and making those deliberative choices. Sometimes it's easier to just go through a drive-through and pick up something in a sack and eat it in my lap on my way to another meeting, and not necessarily a super healthy choice. Sometimes, though, there are ways to be able to give ourselves grace and say, okay, I fell off the wagon this time, but, for dinner, because I wasn't maybe quite so good for lunch, but for dinner, we're going to do a salad. So it's not what you did, it's what you do next.
Yeah. Yeah, and all the things we're talking about, it makes me think of being mindful.
Right, you're right. Absolutely.
In our lives throughout the day is really just, okay, so what are we doing? Okay, that didn't work. So I think it takes effort. So it definitely takes some stamina to, incorporate these things. And really, it's an investment in our lives, right? In us. Who's better to invest in? Our time and energy, ourselves.
Right.
So another strategy is, working out, talking about stamina. I mean, you don't have to run like the people on the screen, but We were just talking about stretching, walking,
Mhm.
you can do a variety of things to get your heart rate up.
Move, just moving.
Yep, the move challenge. I had a move challenge in my group, which was really cool. Another strategy is journaling. So writing,
Hmm.
writing down your thoughts, spending, and I think when you say journaling, people kind of go, "Ugh, I'm not a good writer. I
Yeah,
don't, you know." But I mean, even doing a list is journaling, or just your thoughts. It doesn't have to make sense. Just
right.
get it on paper.
Yep,
Next, we have meditation.
yep.
So meditation, you don't have to sit down like this woman and put your fingers together. It's just really giving yourself time and space. That's what I call meditation, time and space.
Yeah, yeah, even that position I have to say is probably a little more challenging for me with her legs crossed like that. So, but I would say that there are lots of places that I can get into that are meditative.
Yeah.
Again, I'll mention swimming. I think gardening. Um, I like to um, find things at secondhand shops and repaint them and refinish them. I maybe pick up something for a couple of bucks at a Salvation Army or a Goodwill, and I'll get it home and I'll think, oh, and I'll just, for another few bucks, I'll be able to get out and scrape the paint off of it and stain it. And that can be really meditative and get me out of my head,
Yes.
get me out of that thing and the talking in my head and really help you. I think anything that lets you do that, that sort of puts you in a place where you're quieting all the extraneous noise, is that it doesn't have to be yoga, it doesn't have to be Tai Chi. You don't have to have a goat sitting on your back. That's a thing now. Telling you that's a thing now, even in New England.
Oh, that's so funny. And I'm glad that you mentioned that inner critic, that voice in your head is really
Yeah.
getting control of that. Another thing I suggest is even, before you get out of bed in the morning, just take a couple of minutes, or
Yep.
before you go to sleep, just take a couple of minutes. That can
Deep breathing, deep breathing exercises, mindfulness and mindful exercises. Again, Google it.
Yeah, definitely. Or become part of a community that promotes that and can help you work through that.
Absolutely.
Next is communication, that social dimension, really just connecting with people, calling a friend, calling a neighbor, right? Sleep.
Oh, sleep. Yeah. Part of sleep is also, for me, paying attention and knowing when to not have the technology with me. I would say that one of the best things people can do, and I'm not always good about this, is charging my phone in a different room.
Yeah.
Charge my phone in the kitchen, not in the bedside stand, so that every time it goes blink,
Yes.
I'm looking to see who played my word in Words with Friends, and I'm up and looking at it. That blue light is a killer when it comes to interrupting our sleeping, helping us get into the right sleep rhythm and patterns.
Yeah, no, sleep is so important. I say it's the foundation, right? Because you
Yes,
go to sleep, you
absolutely.
wake up, and it's like a restart, right? But if you're not able to sleep, you're not getting that restart, right?
Well,
morning refreshed. You're not getting
and
enough.
I don't know whether or not you'd heard this. I had heard this thing on NPR. It was a person that was talking about the plaques in brains of folks that are suffering with dementia, and the sleep cycle. And I mean, obviously I'm not a doctor, I'm not, I don't, but it was, you could probably Google it and find out, but there's some research out there now that talks about the advantages to sleep and the connection with clearing out the plaques and the things that are happening in our brains that are associated with dementia, and that there's almost a dishwasher thing that's happening in our brains physically, that clears that away. Those the amyloids. I'm not sure if I know the name of it, but the just the nasty stuff that's gunking up our brains. So sleep is hugely protective, and really, genuinely working towards restorative stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Like you think of a car. I mean, you can't run a car forever, right? I mean, your body has to, give it time to heal, reset. That sleep is that time to just kind of let your body digest all the food you had, let it kind of settle,
Right.
It's kind of like a tune-up. I call it like a tune-up, like an automatic tune-up that happens when you're sleeping. But if you're not sleeping, you don't give your body the opportunity to do that,
Well, and one of the things that when I was, when my kids were little, and you've got a little one and you've got a teenager, and, those stretches in their lives where all of a sudden they're going through these growth spurts, and right during that time is when they're actually sleeping like an inordinate amount of time. And because you do your growing when you're a child, you do your growing while you're sleeping.
Yes.
So you're physically growing while you're sleeping. So that's why you can't get it. There's not enough C4 in the Northeast to get your teenager out of bed some mornings. How many sticks of dynamite do I have to get you to come down for lunch? Just to God.
So true.
So that sleep is reparative, and it is generating, and you're right. It is so important, and we should. So it does make sure that, and then we do, and back to our environment. Make sure you've got a place that you can sleep well, whatever that means. Make sure that to the extent that you can, make sure that you've got a space where you can get some quality sleep.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And sometimes maybe a sleep routine. You need whether it's a warm bath or, a warm drink, or, maybe playing some meditation music, or, taking the lights off in the room, or, but really, again, taking time to understand what you need to function at your best, even, to go to sleep. So I think that's important as well. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
And technology is the last one to maintain your wellness.
There you go.
Really jumping in and really connecting with the world, I would say, outside of family and friends, but the world is really
and
important.
Right now, that's such a huge part of what we're all doing now, because we're all trying to adapt, because a lot of those other things that we've been able to do, we have to figure out a workaround. We have to figure out a different way to do it.
Yes, absolutely. And that is that's our normal right now.
Right.
That's normal. Having birthday parties online, that's normal now,
Right.
So, the virtual world consists of, a laptop. That's a way to connect virtually. You can connect on YouTube, watching YouTube videos, like Beth used YouTube to clean out her stove. But they have a lot of great videos on YouTube. Like you were saying, if you want to learn how to breathe, if you want to learn how to do whatever, YouTube is definitely there. Webinars, webinars are really good. They have webinars on, stress management, webinars on disease states, if you want to know more about dementia, Parkinson's, about sleep, right? Webinars is another way you can connect virtually. Your cell phone, is definitely a very convenient way to connect, because you don't have to be at a desktop. You can be anywhere on your phone.
Yeah, and those are getting better. As far as, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, people, before the smartphones really became really good at having mobile apps. We talked about this a little yesterday. You can definitely tell if the website you're on when you're on your phone is not mobile friendly, because it's just miserable. But I think it's getting a whole lot better out there. So, people, I would highly recommend people who haven't made that jump over to a smartphone, if it's something you can tackle, it's certainly something to think about, because you will reopen your world, and it helps move you past that digital divide. And again, that fixed mindset to the growth mindset. Don't go in thinking you can't do it. You know, so.
And that can be your something different.
Yeah. Now it's not in the cards for everybody. It's an expense.
Right.
But
you can.
But if you have the capacity for it, don't dismiss it out of hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Facebook.
Hey.
Has a lot of great, so I want to just say this. So Facebook, there's a couple of things going on Facebook. So you can have your personal Facebook page, which is great, family and friends you can interact with. You can have a business page, right, where you have your business on there, and it's kind of like your bulletin board, I like to say, where you just have what's kind of going on. But then you have Facebook groups and communities, which are private, where you can also, you're with people that are, like-minded, so to speak. So I have a Facebook group for cancer caregivers. There's Facebook groups for, caregivers who are taking care of dementia patients. There are Facebook groups for people who like knitting. There are Facebook groups for people who like drama. There are Facebook groups for anything you can find a Facebook community for. There's probably a Facebook community for people who want to learn technology, right? Where they're doing lessons on how to tap into technology.
Yeah.
But Facebook groups are great. And I wasn't aware of a lot of Facebook groups prior to COVID-19 and how beneficial they were.
Well, sure. And there are, I mean, you're right, on a professional level, to be able to do for connections and research and support groups. But in our personal family, one of my mom's cousins started a Facebook group of their of descendants of John and Rose, and now all of the children and grandchildren and great grandchildren, and all of we can all connect now with stories and pictures and history and genealogy, and it's just been extraordinary to see pictures of my mother's cousins back in the the 40s and 50s, and her aunts and uncles, and in the 20s and 30s, and it's just really cool. And what a way to connect now. When my mom's got cousins that live literally all over the world. And isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome.
So it can be a personal, and you're right. It's usually the communities. I think I'm right that most of the time you communities you have to be invited into. So you're saying it's private?
You don't have to be invited. If you find a community, you can just join, and some of them you're automatically in the community once you hit join. Others you may have to answer a couple of questions.
Yep.
So, like, why do you want to be a part of this community, or whatever, but very basic questions you answer.
But what I'm saying is that you were right. They're relatively closed communities, so it's not like things you're going to say or do are going to be out there on the web, freely, openly available on Facebook. That they fit within this little sub room. It's sort of like
Yeah, a real community, a virtual community. Yes.
Right, a virtual community, absolutely.
Yeah.
So.
And then support groups online where you are face-to-face. So I'm a part of a support group where we meet twice a month, and we are able to see each other. Now, these are people, again, I've never met in real life, but they are my friends, and we're part of community where we come together twice a month. And I'll use an example. So we had a meeting last week, and one of the members didn't come. Didn't email, didn't call, and everybody was so worried, like, this is not usual. So we all, emailed and called and was checking in on him because he's like our family. We getting together and getting some FaceTime. So again, you can meet, great people through being part of these virtual communities.
And sometimes with these virtual communities, you might have, depending on where you're living in smaller towns or smaller communities, you might not have a group of people that you could just sit in your living room and talk about your latest issue with, rheumatoid arthritis or, whatever it is that you have. I mean, even some of the larger issues out there, to be able to talk about those specific things in a larger community, because in the virtual world, it literally is the whole world. Yeah. So there are, whatever it is that you're struggling with, there's a community out there. Yeah. I promise you, there's a community out there. Yeah. If you investigate it.
Even for stress. I mean, we're talking about stress, even for feeling overwhelmed, even for depression, anxiety. I mean, anything, you can definitely find a community. And there's something to be said about that, because you're not alone, right? Because sometimes you feel alone in your feelings and emotions and your experiences, but there's a world out there of people who can definitely relate to you and help, right?
And help, right. And give you, and sometimes it's about not having to reinvent the wheel. Maybe sometimes there's something that I've been able to do and been able to come over and overcome and triumph that I could pass on to somebody else. Or maybe somebody else might have kind of a little gem that would help me through a tough point, Yeah. And be able to say, hey, did you try this? I'm thinking specifically, this is oversharing once again, but I was specifically thinking about somebody who told me a trick I had to, first colonoscopy, and that's not a pleasant thing. But you have to drink this nasty stuff. White grape juice cuts that taste. And so to mix that when you have to prep for that, to be able to have some white grape juice with you and to drink that alternatively, is a fabulous way to be able to help get you through that whole prep part of it. So there you go. So that's that sort of like, wouldn't have heard it if I hadn't been talking to somebody on the phone and they suggested it, and it was a phone. It wasn't a webinar or a support group, but it was a virtual connection where somebody said, hey, have you tried that? And I went, wow. And I've passed that little nugget along to many people. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now pass it on to the world, because we're going to be virtually aired. And one thing I want to say about the virtual world, YouTube and Facebook, prior to COVID-19, people may have had misconceptions about, the virtual world. But what I want to say, going back to mindset, is we are in control of what we consume. Mm-hmm. We are in control of what we consume. So people say, oh, there's all this stuff on Facebook, there's all this stuff on YouTube, there's all this stuff online. Yes, there is all that stuff, but we are in control of what we consume. So again, figuring out what you need and going after it, right? Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
Yep. And you do have to be very, you have to be aware, and you have to be, you can't be just oblivious, and certainly don't take everything at face value, because there's a lot of stuff out there that is not gospel, man.
No, you're right. You're definitely right. But definitely protecting yourself from things you don't want to be, involved with, but also exploring it for things that can definitely be beneficial is important. So, yeah. All right. So next steps to virtual support. So what? Identify what type of support you need. What do you require? Right? So is it a caregiver group? Is it Alzheimer's support? Is it knitting? Is it learning how to sleep? Right? Why? What's your why? Think about the benefits of having the support, right? So, where are you now? What's your reality is really, number one. Number two is what's your goal? How is this going to solve that problem? And who? So I think number three is really important, really trying to figure out who is a trusted resource or person, like Beth, right? Who can provide you a valid recommendation, right? So sometimes it can be scary, like, I don't know, I don't really know where to start, but you can start by having a conversation with someone to say, hey, this is what I'm going through. Do you know a resource that I can use to help me with this? Feel a little more comfortable with that. So when really inquire about scheduling. So how often do these people meet? Is it twice a month? Is it weekly? Is it every day, right? And is that going to work for you? Do you have to be there every day? Can you just pop in? So I think when is really important is to make sure it aligns with your schedule in your life, and where virtual platform. So, you know, you'll be online. That's why we're talking about this, and how. So really determine what technology you would need. Sometimes you don't need a computer or a laptop. Maybe you just need a landline just to call someone.
Right.
And then once you identify that, figure out how to use it and who's best to help you with that. So Beth, any thoughts on this?
You know, you know, with the who, I think that when you, what I'm pulling out of number 3 is really the trusted resource. And back to that conversation, we just sort of ended with the last slide. We talked about, you know, being able to trust what it is you're talking, you know, what people are saying and talking, whether they're talking about a support group or information or resources. It really does help to talk to a trusted person and have a lead. Not unlike, you know, when you're going to have, you've got a car and you move to a new city and your car goes on the fritz, you know, you don't necessarily just want to be just pulling into the first auto mechanic you see. You know, it really helps to talk to a coworker. Hey, where do you take your car to get it worked on? Or to a neighbor, hey, where is it that, you know, where's the best, you know, I need to set up with a new dentist. Who do you trust? Who do you go to? So go to your go-to people where you can, to find those valid websites, to go to those valid virtual spaces. Talk to, and in cases of, you know, to talk to your doctor, talk to your pharmacist, talk to your nurse practitioner, talk to your, your friends and family about who it is that where they can go with that, you know.
No, that's definitely a good start. I totally agree with you. That's going to be the essential part to move you forward.
Right. And the
trusted person or resource.
The when and the where, again, paying attention to where and when it works for you, to make sure that you're not just adding another layer of stress on what it is you're doing. So it's got to be able to be something that you really truly can incorporate it. So you might not be able to do it maybe not going to be able to commit to doing it every single week,
right?
You know, for the rest of your life. That might be a little step too far. So maybe you ask if you can just join in and see how it feels. And, you know, maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon is a great time if you're caregiving for somebody and you want to join into a caregiver support group. And maybe, like I said, 2 o'clock in the afternoon is a great time. Maybe 8 o'clock in the evening is a wonderful time if you've got, after you put the kids to bed, you know, kind of a thing. It all depends on what fits for you. And so it's about mindfulness and understanding where we've got it. So yeah.
Yeah, and I also want to just say, is it recorded too when you're inquiring about schedules, right? So is it recorded? Can you access this support later on if you're not able to be there live? So don't write it off if it doesn't fit into your schedule, but you can inquire, is it recorded? Can I go listen to it later on at 2 in the morning when you should be asleep, or at 8 o'clock when everybody's sleeping? So that's another advantage of being in the virtual world, that things are recorded and you can put them out and access them anytime you want.
There you go. So another wonderful thing.
Yes, awesome. And I want to thank you all for your attention. This was great, Beth. I totally enjoyed this. This was awesome.
Oh, this has been such a really good, timely, important caregiver conversation, Wendy.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for joining us. This is awesome.
Yeah, and thank you very much. And here's her Wendy's information. And again, this caregiver conversation that we're having. I mean, if you're watching this, you're already on Facebook or YouTube or our website, so you've already made the first step. So check out the website and check out Wendy up in Connecticut. This is one of the good things about Connecticut, about those making those virtual connections. You know, a couple of years ago, Wendy, we wouldn't have known each other. We wouldn't have had necessarily any way of understanding that, maybe somebody struggling down here with cancer and caregiving and for a loved one who's feeling alone and isolated, you know, this is another toy for their toy box.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. So thank you again. I just want to leave everybody with, you are in control of your life. We're all in control, and we can do it. We can definitely do it.
We can do this, right?
Yes.
I thank you so very much, Wendy. And you have a great day.
You too, Beth. Take care.
Bye-bye.